Hi again, this is Pat from the Animatronic Shop, and this is the fourth video on how to build your StarBot. In this video we're going to cover how to build the eye assembly. So if you can lay all your parts out like this, these are what you'll be needing to build the eye. That would be awesome. And what I also did was took my 3 servos out of the bag, and I took the servo horns out of the bag as well. And the servo horns, the bag of the servo horns come with 3 servo horns, but the one we're going to be using is the one that has the hole drilled out, and it's a single servo horn. So I have these laid out, and I also have the short screws are what we're going to be using to screw the servo horns on. So I'm going to get started with the base at the bottom, the base bottom of the eye assembly, and this is the orientation you want to be looking at, with the servo hole tilted to the right hand side. And here are the side supports. Now there's 2 of them. They sort of look really much like one another, but they're not, because the one on the left side of the support has a slightly bigger hole than the one on the right. And the one on the left is marked EM1, and hopefully the laser scored everybody's plastic. So I'm going to take EM1, which is, you can see it really small, it's on the plastic right there, and I'm going to put it into the tab, into the slot on the plastic. And I'm going to take one of the small machine screws and screw that on. It doesn't have to be tight, like I said before. Now I'm going to do the same thing with EM2 on the other side. Small sheet metal, small machine screw. And there we go. Alright, looking great. Now the back says EM3. Snap it in. Small sheet metal screw. I keep doing that. It's a machine screw, Pat. Okay. One more little screw. Like so. Oh, now that nut popped out. Put the nut back in, and the screw. Like I said earlier, it's pretty hard working with a camera almost directly right in front of my face, but it's coming along pretty good. So there's the bottom of the eye assembly. Put this right over here. Now I'm going to take the top and the vertical link support, the orientation like that, if you can see it. What you do is just drop it down into the slots and slide it forward just a little bit. Again, take another small machine screw and screw it down. And I'll put that off to the side. Now, to build the linkage, we're going to need a servo horn, one of the short plastic screws, and these 2 linkages, the ones that are cut down in half, like so. And how they're going to go is we want them where these 2 halves meet, and both of these flatted areas are going to be pointed up. So I'm going to put a screw up through here like like so. Now with the servo horn, with the spline pointed down, I'm going to screw this in. And how tight you should make this is snug it up and then back it out about a quarter of a turn. And that's perfect. So what it should look like is with the flattened areas facing up and the spline of the servo horn pointed down. And this is your eye linkage. Now I'm going to grab one of the servos, and what makes it a little easy for me is if I take one of these small plastic screws and I just push it into that hole a little bit so it stays there, and it sort of helps me when I install this. I don't have to try doing this when it's in place. So there they are. You see how the screws are kind of just pushed in there a little bit? Now taking the eye base, the servo goes just like that. Now isn't that terrific? Look, the screws are waiting for me, and I'm just gonna tighten those up. Again, don't make anything too tight or you can snap the plastic, and it doesn't have to be tight, it just has to be snug enough. Okay, there we go. Looking good. Okay, now I'm going to take the Arduino. I already have the USB cord plugged into my computer. So this is for the eye left and right movement. That goes into the servo harness number 1 position. So let me let you see there's my Arduino, and here's my servo harness. The plug is polarized, so you can only put it in one direction. So I'm going to take this and put it into number 1. Now when I power on the Arduino, we should start to see things beginning to happen. Okay. So I didn't go through the buttons, but this is power on and off. This moves the mouth, this moves the eyes, and these will do play and record. We'll get to those later. So I'll press the on button, and I just heard my servo make a little noise, which means that it's on. So now if I move this left and right, the joystick, I can feel the servo moving left and right. And what we're looking for now is we want to make the center of the servo position. So with the joystick left off, the servo is sitting in the center position, and we want to put the servo horn on and try to get it as straight vertical as you possibly can. A little bit doesn't really matter, but you want to just wiggle it back and forth a little bit until you find the servo spline. And if it's not perfectly centered, that's okay, because you can go into the code later and adjust for that. So when I found which servo spline notch is closer to vertical, I just push down and the servo horn sort of snugly snaps into place. I'm going to take one of these small screws I had from the servo horn bag and just lightly again snug that down. Okay, so here we go. Now we have the eye linkage. Now I'm going to grab my 2 eyes. The eyes are going to use 2 of the short plastic screws. And I'm going to power off my Arduino because we're done with that for now. And unplug the servo. Now I don't really like to push on servos, but I'm going to do it here. We're not going to be doing it much. So I just want to push it a little to the left so it releases that linkage up into this area so I can screw on the eye. So going from the bottom of that link, I'm going to put one of these small screws, and I'm going to screw in the eyes, the first eye. So like I said before, it is much easier to do this when you don't have a camera right in front of you and trying to hold this up in front of the camera. So that's good. It doesn't have to be too tight, just tight enough. And now I'll push the servo just a little bit, just a little, and lightly. You don't have to push it hard. Just enough to release the link into that space. Another short screw, and the other eye. This is how I prefer to hold the eye when I do this, where I'm not holding it by the vacuum formed plastic part, but I try to hold it by the eye horn. And snug that up as much as you can. But do not make it tight. Okay, so now the eyes are getting pretty close. Put that a little bit back to center. There we go. Perfect. Just like that. Now I'm going to take the top and line up the slots. And the eye assembly should almost be complete. So there we go. I'm going to take 4 more machine screws. Put them into the holes. And snug it down. Oh, I had a little nut slip out. Okay. So where are you? There it is. Let me put the nut back in here. So much easier when the nuts are done ahead of time and you don't have a camera right in front of your face. There. Oh, there we go. I keep shooting it right through the other side. There we go. Nuts in place. Screw. And there we go. Awesome. There we go. Eye assembly almost done. Now I want to put the vertical movement of the eye linkage. I made this neat linkage here and glued on a spacer for you to offset the eye link. So taking the second longest of the plastic screws, this one here, I'm going to put the screw through the linkage like so, and I'm going to screw it into the vertical eye support there. Again, you don't want to make this tight. There isn't a, you want to make it where it can move pretty freely. Just like that. Now I'm going to take another servo horn and a short screw. And the orientation of this is where the servo horn spline is facing that way, and we're going to put it on just like that. So I'm going to put a screw up through there, and there's my servo horn. Snug it down, and then I usually back it about an eighth to a quarter of a turn. So here we go. Eye assembly is pretty nearly complete. Now it's a little snug fit when you put it in to the head assembly, the main assembly. So I'm going to remove this one screw to make installing it a little bit easier. So this one screw I'm going to take out. Just for now, it'll go back in just a minute. There we go. Now I'm going to get another servo ready, and again I'm going to do the same thing with the pressing the plastic screws into the servo horn a little bit. And it's much easier doing it this way than to try to do it when it's in your bot, unless you have really, really, really small fingers. So there we go. And that goes in your bot right there. And snug these down. Again, oh, I was doing so good. That's what you get when you try to do this first thing in the morning. And with a camera right in front of your face. And letting people see what you're doing. Okay. Believe me, it's much easier when you don't have a camera. I think I'm just going to take this out and do it again, because it is so much easier. Okay. Again, from the back side, screw one, and this time I'm not going to try to go so fast. Okay, there's one. And I just wanted to get them started. Okay, there's one is snug and two is snug. So anyway, you got to see how much easier it is when you get those screws to kind of stick with the servo when you're putting it in, as opposed to trying to put it in afterwards. Okay, so now here comes the part where we're going to put the eye into the assembly. Excuse me. Okay, what we're going to do, if we're looking at the bot like that, we're going to just slide it in just like this. And what we want to get is this linkage to slide right up in there. And once we have the plastic of the main base slip in between the slot on the eye assembly, you just slide it down just like that, and then you line up the two holes with the eye support sides to the main head assembly. Now we take the longest plastic screw and put it in this hole. This is why we wanted the one bigger on the right hand side. And let me line up the hole, and there it goes right on through. Snug this down. You do not have to make this tight. You just want to get the screw to grip a bit, and here we go. Now we have the eye assembly starting to work. Now that screw that we took out to make putting it in a little easier, I'm just going to put that back in. And just snug it down a little. Okay, now this is a fun little part. Oh, first I'm going to take this servo wire and I'm going to feed it through the bot like this. I like having them nice and straight. Through there and then down through that hole. And now it's out of the way. So now we can snap the eyes into the eye assembly. So you can see there's a shaft and on the eye, and then there's a little snap clip on the eye assembly. I'm just going to line up the shaft with the snap clip and then just pop them in. The same thing on the other side. And I don't like to push like this, where I'm pushing against this eye assembly and there's nothing holding it and I'm holding the bot over here. I like to hold against the piece that I'm pushing on, like this. And the shaft is lined up with the snap clips, and just, there we go, eyes are on. So there we have it. Okay. Now, we're going to do the same thing with the eye vertical servo as we did with the eye horizontal. And this time, I'm going to take the servo wire for the eye vertical and plug that into number 2 on the servo harness. And while I'm here, I might as well plug in the number 1 as well, and I'll show you the eye working. Again, these plugs are polarized, so you can only put them in one direction. There we go. Now I'm going to, let me get this where you can see it a little bit better. Now I'm going to plug the Arduino in. Power it on. And you can see the eyes are now moving left and right. And when I move up and down on the joystick, I can feel the servo move. So with it in a neutral position, with just letting the joystick go back to center position. We're going to find the spline just like we did earlier. So I'm going to move the eye assembly to where it's pretty straight horizontally. And then I'm going to line up the servo horn with the spline shaft from the servo. And I'm just going to move this a little bit back and forth until I feel it find the spline that's closest position when it's in the horizontal position. And there we go. I pushed on the servo horn and now it's on the servo. Take one of these small servo horn screws and screw on the servo horn. So now it's hard to see the eyes moving because we have no decals on here yet, but you can see it's moving up and down, and they're moving left and right and up and down. So that does it for the eye assembly video, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll be working on the jaw. Thanks.